A cardboard box gets taped shut every second somewhere in the US, over 100 billion a year. Before this box, crates ruled shipping. Solid wood, pried open with a crowbar. This factory skips all that. It starts with raw pine pulp, soft, wet, barely a tree anymore. At this factory, that softness is about to turn into something strong enough to survive a delivery truck. Softwood chips, pine and spruce from Pacific Northwest forests, cook into kraft pulp, long fibers tangling together like tiny threads. Recycled paper joins the mix too, though those fibers have been through the ringer once already, shorter and weaker. Heavy loads need more fresh kraft. Lighter boxes lean on recycled paper instead. Ever stacked boxes and watch the bottom one cave in? That is exactly what an edge crush rating prevents. A higher rating holds up longer under weight. The pulp reaches the machine as a thin gray slurry, 99% water, barely thicker than milk.
That watery slurry sprays onto a fast-moving wire mesh, and here is where cardboard's real transformation begins. As water drains through the screen below, the fibers left behind lock together into a continuous sheet, turning liquid pulp into paper strong enough to hold its own weight. The machine pulls that sheet forward at nearly 40 miles an hour, fast enough that a full mile of finished paper rolls off the line every 2 minutes. Two separate sheets take shape side by side down the line, one destined to become the smooth outer liner, the other headed somewhere far stranger. Now, for the layer nobody thinks about, even though every box depends on it. A separate sheet of medium paper feeds between two gear-shaped rollers, steamed soft and pliable, then pressed into a continuous wave of identical arches, hundreds of them, back to back. This is fluting, and it is the entire secret behind cardboard's strength. Flat paper folds almost instantly under pressure, but bend that same paper into tiny repeating waves, and every ridge starts acting like a little brace. That is why a box wall can feel stiff, even though it is still mostly paper. Hot starch glue rolls onto the tip of every arch, and a flat liner sheet presses down on top, bonding instantly under heat. A second liner glues to the other side. 3 sheets, 1 board. The corrugator runs this entire sequence, fluting, gluing, pressing, laminating at over 300 meters a minute, fast enough to wrap an entire city block in finished board every 60 seconds. Golden brown, ridged, impossibly rigid, the board rolls out in one continuous ribbon, ready to be cut into whatever size a shipping box needs.
From here, giant rolls of finished board feed into a printing press, stamping marks and handling instructions directly onto the surface. Next comes die cutting, where steel rule blades punch out the box's entire shape in one pass, flaps, slots, and fold lines all at once. Those fold lines are barely a scratch. Cut too deep, and the box splits under its first load. Too shallow, and it refuses to fold cleanly. Scoring operators train for months before running a die alone. That calibration changes with every paperweight and humidity shift. One line stamps out well over 200 boxes a minute, each one popping free already flattened, ready to fold only once it reaches a warehouse. The flattened boxes stack into bundles of 50, banded tight and palletized for shipping. The same flat folded stack you've broken down and tossed in recycling 100 times. Here's the part most people never consider. Boxes travel to warehouses completely unfolded, because a flat box takes a fraction of the space a built one would. The box does not really become a box until the warehouse needs it. Random samples get pulled for an edge crush test, squeezed steadily until they buckle, to confirm the batch meets its promised strength rating. If that test fails, the problem may not show up here in the factory. It shows up later, when a pallet is already stacked, wrapped, and sitting under real weight. Only batches that pass move on to bundling and shipping. But kraft pulp does not only become boxes. Next, the same fiber turns wafer thin, sealed shut by a 2-century-old trick that isn't really glue. waiting on every flap for a single drop of moisture. The gum on an envelope flap is not glue, and never was. It is edible starch, dormant until a drop of moisture wakes it up. But that is only the surface trick. Inside every security envelope, there is a printed pattern most people assume is decoration. It is not. At this factory, that pattern and that starch both begin with giant rolls of paper. Depending on the order, one roll feeds the line at a time. Craft paper goes first when the job calls for mailing envelopes built to survive transit. Its long fibers resist tearing where a flimsier paper gives out. White wove paper takes over instead for personal letters and greeting cards, since a crisp look matters more there than raw durability. Check the corner of any envelope before buying a box. A higher paperweight printed on the packaging means fewer torn flaps and crushed corners later. Whichever roll runs that day, it unwinds onto the line, paper hissing flat before a blade touches it. Here is the part almost nobody expects. The gum on a modern envelope flap is not tree sap anymore. It is dextrin, a starch adhesive made by cooking cornstarch with acid until it turns into a sticky syrup, then painted onto the flap in one thin stripe. Dried, it sits harmless until a drop of moisture wakes it back up. The gumming unit coats over 15,000 flaps every hour without missing a stripe. But the flap is only half the engineering. Somewhere else on this line, a second secret is being printed onto the inside of the paper. Nothing to do with adhesive, everything to do with privacy. Now the paper actually becomes an envelope, and this is where flat turns three-dimensional in seconds. A rotary die stamps out envelope blanks in one continuous diamond shape. One long point for the flap, two side points, one bottom point, punched from the roll faster than the eye can track a single shape passing through. Folding arms sweep in immediately after. The bottom flap tucks up first, then both side flaps fold inward and glue together at the seams, leaving only the top flap standing open and unfinished. This single line folds and seals over 1,200 envelopes a minute, enough finished stock to fill a small moving truck before a coffee break even ends. Watch closely, and every fold lands in exactly the same spot, over and over, thousands of times an hour. Crisp corners, dead square folds, each envelope emerging identical to the one that came before it, and the one before that. Only the top flap stays free, its dextrin stripe waiting untouched for a real letter and a real thumb to finally seal it shut. For envelopes with a clear window, a separate machine punches out a rectangle from the front panel and glues a strip of transparent film behind the gap. The entire reason a mailed bill never needs its address typed twice. Look closely at the inside of a security envelope though, and there's a busy, swirling pattern printed across the paper. Not decoration, but a deliberate screen that keeps light from passing through, so nobody holding it up to a window can read the check or account number sealed inside. Operators check that registration closely because even a slight drift can leave the window crooked or the security pattern misaligned. One finishing line prints, windows, and folds over 20,000 envelopes an hour. Finished envelopes stack into bundles of 500, shrink-wrapped and boxed, the exact box you grab off a shelf at an office supply store without a second thought. Here's the detail that box never mentions. Every envelope inside sits flap side down and facing the same direction, because a single reversed envelope can jam in a dressing machine 3 states away, long after this factory has moved on to the next order. A sample from every batch gets tested for tack, pressing a moistened flap shut and checking how much force it takes to peel back open. If the gum seal's too weak, envelopes pop open in transit and spill their contents at exactly the wrong moment. Too much tack causes a different problem, a flap that tears instead of releasing cleanly. Any batch outside that window gets pulled before a single box reaches a shelf. But envelopes are built to keep moisture away. The next paper product is built for the opposite. The looser its fibers, the more water it can hold, and the softer it feels while it's holding it. A single paper towel holds several times its own weight in water, something no other paper in this factory can do without falling apart. The secret is not what goes into the sheet, it is what stays out. Before disposable towels, people used a shared cloth rag. At this factory, the build starts with pulp deliberately fluffed apart, not pressed flat. Two kinds of pulp meet here, each with its own job. Long softwood fibers arrive from northern mills, tangling into a kind of scaffolding the sheet can lean on. Shorter, softer hardwood fibers join next, filling the gaps with the bulk and cushion your hand actually feels. Lean too hard on hardwood alone for extra softness, and the sheet tears the moment it meets a real spill. Ever wonder why some rolls shred if you tug too hard, while others hold through a whole countertop mess? That ratio is the difference. Dry pulp bales rip open into loose fiber under a shredding hammer. Here's the part that would ruin any other paper. This pulp slurry gets a dose of wet-strength resin stirred in before it ever reaches the paper machine. Ordinary paper falls apart the instant it meets water, fibers unbonding into mush. This resin does the opposite. It locks fibers together with a bond that survives being soaked, wrung, and scrubbed across a countertop. This factory blends in around 1% resin by fiber weight, sometimes less, yet that tiny fraction is the reason a wet paper towel doesn't fall apart in your hand. Now, for the step that makes paper towels feel nothing like regular paper. Instead of squeezing the wet sheet between hard metal rollers, this machine wraps it around a massive rotating drum and blasts hot air straight through the fibers from the inside, drying the sheet without ever crushing it flat. Regular paper gets pressed dense and smooth, fiber packed against fiber until barely any gap remains. This sheet stays open instead, riddled with tiny gaps that behave like channels. The moment a spill touches the sheet, water climbs inward through those channels instead of sliding across the surface. A good roll can hold many times its own weight in water, the spill vanishing upward almost the instant it makes contact. Run several drums side by side, and this line produces enough finished sheet to wrap a football field in paper towel every single hour. Thick, cloud-soft, and riddled with air pockets, the sheet rolls off the drum barely resembling paper at all, closer to a dry sponge waiting to happen than anything that came off a printing press. Why does every paper towel carry that same quilted diamond pattern? Embossing rollers press it in on purpose, and it is not decoration. Each raised pocket increases the surface area touching a spill and creates tiny wells that trap liquid instead of letting it run off the edge. Calibrating embossing depth to a fraction of a millimeter is a job only a few operators on this floor are trusted to fine-tune, because too shallow and the pattern does nothing, too deep and the sheet tears along every ridge. A perforation blade scores faint dotted lines across the sheet next, so a single towel tears clean along that line instead of shredding sideways. This finishing line runs over 2,000 feet of embossed sheet every minute. The giant finished roll slices down its length and rewinds onto narrow cardboard cores sized for a kitchen counter. That first clean tear is not luck. It comes from winding tension, perforation depth, and how tightly the sheet grips the core, calibrated so the first pull comes away clean, not shredded. Finished rolls shrink wrap in 2s and 6s, ready for the exact pack under a sink somewhere right now. Random sheets get pulled for an absorbency test, a measured splash of water dropped onto the surface, timed until it fully disappears into the fibers. If a batch soaks too slowly, the wet-strength resin may be running heavy, stiffening fibers that should stay loose and open. Any roll that fails gets pulled before a single one reaches a shelf. But paper towels are built to stay strong when wet. Toilet paper has the harder job. It has to feel soft in your hand, then disappear before it clogs the pipe. A roll of toilet paper is built to fail on command. It has to stay whole in your hand, then break apart fast once water and motion take over. Before modern tissue, people used everything from corn cobs to torn catalog pages. This factory starts with short, soft hardwood fibers grown on fast rotation plantations, bred for exactly this job. Short hardwood fibers arrive first, often eucalyptus, prized because short, thin fibers help create a softer sheet instead of locking tight. A blend of virgin and recycled fiber goes in next. Rolls made mostly from virgin fiber often feel smoother, while recycled rolls depend heavily on how clean and well-processed the recovered fiber was. Check the package before buying. Virgin fiber rolls tend to feel more consistent, batch to batch. The dry pulp bales rip apart under a shredding hammer, fiber scattering loose, already halfway to falling apart. The slurry looks like any other paper mix, but the formula is holding back on purpose. Here's what this batch avoids: the permanent wet-strength resin used in towels built to survive soaking. Bathroom tissue relies on weaker bonds instead, sometimes a touch of temporary strength chemistry, so the sheet holds together dry, then gives way once flushed. This factory runs close to the opposite chemistry of nearly every other roll of paper it could be making. One production line here turns out enough finished tissue to unspool across 400 miles of track in a single day. Now for the step that gives bathroom tissue its softness: creeping. The wet sheet wraps around an enormous steam-heated cylinder called a Yankee dryer, and a steel blade scrapes it off in one continuous motion, crimping the fibers into thousands of tiny wrinkles instead of leaving the sheet flat. That crimping is the entire secret to toilet paper's bulk and softness, since it traps air between the wrinkles without adding a single extra fiber. Skip the creeping step, and the same amount of fiber comes out thin, flat, and papery, nothing like the pillowy sheet on the roll at home. This one Yankee dryer runs hot enough and fast enough to creep over 6,000 feet of tissue every minute, enough finished sheet in a single hour to stretch from one end of a small city to the other. Soft, crinkled, barely there, the sheet peels off the blade, already behaving like the paper it's about to become, holding together only for exactly as long as it needs to, and not 1 second more. Why does 2-ply toilet paper stay together on the roll but separate the instant it gets wet? The two thin sheets bond at tiny embossed points pressed in by a roller, not glued edge to edge, just enough contact to hold shape dry, not enough to survive a soak. Run a finger across any 2-ply sheet, and that faint texture is exactly those bond points. Proof the roll is still holding two separate layers together. For now, operators watch that alignment closely, because a slight drift leaves the roll feeling thin, loose, or uneven instead of full. One finishing line embosses, bonds, and winds over 1,500 rolls an hour, each one carrying that same nearly invisible pattern of tiny points holding two layers together by the barest possible margin. The giant finished roll slices down its length into individual rolls and winds around cardboard cores sized for a bathroom holder. Here's a detail worth checking. Sheet count on the label sounds reassuring, but sheet size quietly varies between brands, so more sheets can still mean less paper overall. Finished rolls shrink wrap in packs of 4 or 6, ready for the one sitting in a bathroom cabinet right now. Every batch faces a disintegration test. A sample drops into an agitated water bath and gets timed until it breaks into small pieces. If a sheet takes too long to fall apart, it tested too strong, risking a clog further down the line. If it falls apart too fast, the roll would shred before it ever left the shelf. Only batches landing in that narrow window gets cleared to ship. Here, weakness is engineered right down to the timing. Next time you reach for a roll, remember, every sheet is made to fail at exactly the right time. Strong enough for your hand, gone the moment it is asked to disappear.